How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Things are really good. Thanks for I'm a minute over, so I'm behind it a small bit, but Kira never
Come on now,
stops
Tony.
talking.
Come on.
I know, Kira never stops talking. Um, we'll get into a little bit about undergrad because I
Yeah.
see a couple of people watching. We'll get into then because this week is kind of a postgraduate focus session, so we'll obviously talk about that, and we'll hopefully talk a little bit around maybe transition from one to the other and a couple of other things outside the classroom.
Yeah.
Firstly, how are you? How's the last couple of weeks been, and how are you keeping?
I'm good. The last few weeks have been stressful. I'm obviously the first few weeks into my master's now, and I'm doing my FE1 exams starting on Friday. So very busy, but coming up to the last few weeks of the crazy stress now at the minute.
So handy enough day in the life for you because you're always on top of things. To be fair
Oh
to
yeah.
you, so in context of the postgraduate conversation today, maybe give those watching or listening
Mm-hmm.
a bit of a sense. And actually, before you do that, just want to remind people there's a Q&A function on the screen. If you have a question as we're going, feel free to pop it in there. It's anonymous. I won't read out your name. There's no problem. Pop it in there and we'll get to it. So we'll hopefully make this interactive in terms of people wanting to ask a couple of questions. But maybe, yeah, let's go with reverse a little bit or look back a little bit in terms of the undergrad that you did. And then we'll talk a little bit around the current postgrad opportunity.
Yeah. So I started in 2016 and I started in law and society, and I've just graduated now, just the summer just gone. So I obviously did 4 years. I did my intra in Arthur Cox, and then in March, obviously, of last year, we all went home, didn't go back to campus. And then I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. Was I just going to go in and do my FE1s? I obviously couldn't travel this year. You couldn't even really work this year. It was a bit of a mess. Um, and then we were told about the opportunity to apply for the Masters in Law, or the LLM. And in conjunction with that, we could apply for the Scott Scholarship. So that was an unbelievable opportunity that came from Arthur Cox. So that's a €12,000 scholarship that covers your fees and a stipend for the year. So I was lucky enough to be awarded that. So that's how I'm on my master's this year.
Congrats, and I know we were speaking a good while ago. I think it's richly deserved because, to be fair to yourself, you're always, as I said, on top of your things, but you're also working extremely hard. So, congrats. For those that are watching, obviously, it's another thing that might necessarily jump off the prospectus page or the site online or whatever. But just, I guess, to be aware, there is other supports, and as your own highlights there, other scholarships and opportunities to avail of. So, maybe, and again, this is a very short conversation, maybe let's quickly jog across then to the current postgraduate space that you're in, and we'll explore that maybe for the next couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm. So I am doing, as I said, the LLM, which is a general master's in law. So some masters allow you to specialize maybe in corporate law or in criminal law, but mine is quite general. So for this semester, I'm focusing on legal research, public policy, and political relations, and law ethics and the person. So these are subjects that I wouldn't have had the opportunities to study for my undergrad. So this just gives me like an even wider scope of the law and allows me to develop my own research skills. And then next semester, I'll get to choose the likes of climate change law. I think there's human rights law with the focus on like migration and refugees. So all the subjects are really, really up to date. They kind of change every year and even every semester. So as the law is changing in the real world, the law is changing in DCU, and we're kept up to date academically. And this master's is really geared towards those who want to actually pursue law as a career. So I know myself anyway, I want to be a solicitor. So the research side of this will really help me when I go to Blackhall and when I start my training contract.
Give us, if you can, a sense, and specifically around the law side of things, and we could talk about this in all the other 70 odd undergraduate courses and obviously postgrad as well. Give us a sense of the academic side of it in terms of the teaching, in my opinion, the excellent teaching in your space. Give us a sense of some of, not necessarily names, but just just a general sense of that side of things.
So this year it's a little bit different. Obviously, it's all online, but I cannot speak highly enough of the lectures this year. So the lectures are brilliant every year, but this year they've really gone above and beyond. So I have 3 modules this semester. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And days in advance of each lecture, we're given all the readings, everything is sent to us. We don't have to find anything, which we often would have had to do. We would have had to go to the library. That's no big deal, but obviously now we can't access the library. So to have the materials there, that cuts down all the stress. It means we know exactly what we need to learn, exactly what we need to have covered. And the lecturers are recording the lectures, so if you miss it, if you're unwell, like everyone's internet's dropping left, right and center lately, so it means you can come back and pick it up an hour later if you need to. But yeah, I really cannot say enough about the lectures this year. They're fantastic.
And just to give people a sense of, for those that might be unfamiliar with the teaching environment as such, there's a loop system, or it's like an internal workspace, if you like, where I don't know if yourselves are using it directly or maybe using another platform. There's an internal system where all your classes are put up and there's interactive quizzes and you can have conversations and you can chat as well as email and everything else. So I guess just to bear that in mind for those listening and watching, there is, as I said, an in-house kind of system that's there that you plug directly into. Could I talk a little bit, because I'm assuming in your space you need to be organized, you'll need to be disciplined, and you need to be on top of your things, your research, your own readings, etc., as well as assignments. Can I talk a little bit around that in the context of, and you mentioned already the library and the teaching assistance that is there. Anything else that you've availed of, and even in your undergrad, I guess as well, but anything else you've availed of as such supports or different facilities that DCU would have on offer?
When I remember one of the biggest supports I used was the academic writing. So when I was in kind of 5th and 6th year, I loved writing. I loved English. So I went in and thought, sure, I know how to write. I have a good grasp of language. I'll be fine. And then was very rudely awakened when I figured out that academic writing isn't quite the same as the descriptive storytelling writing that you might have done for your Leaving Cert. So I found the academic writing workshops and the citation workshops as well in the library to be so, so helpful. And these are like really easy marks that you can pick up in assignments and in exams. So for any like first years coming into college, make use of those. Like they're absolutely brilliant. And then they'll set you up for the rest of your 3 or 4 years in college. I probably I used a lot, like I was in the library the whole time, and myself and my friends would have used study groups and booked some of the kind of study rooms in the library, and that was so helpful to give us a definite space and a definite time frame that we could get work done, especially for projects or coming up to deadlines and stuff. And working in a group meant that we could share the workload, that if there was something one of us didn't understand, we could break it down and then everyone was up to date.
And I guess that probably from a DCU side of it, things are designed specifically in such a way. So if you're given a certain assignment, this is the global point really in terms of university life. If you're given a certain assignment, you're expected to have the necessary resources or facilities to kind of complement. In your case, you're obviously talking about the writing center and the library, but and there's teaching assistants, but there's many other things that is in place or is there. I want to talk a little bit around clubs and societies, because in a very different way, kind of that complements and gives you a bit of a release valve or outside the class in general. So I will touch on that in a couple of minutes as well, but maybe a little bit more around the program. And I know you mentioned a small bit about it already, but a little bit more around the program for those tuning in. So things like, if you can quantify it, that is hours a week, both in class or online in class, independent learning, things like many's in your class, and we'll talk about careers and a couple other things in a moment, but give a sense of the program in that way.
So this semester I have 6 hours a week of lectures. So I have 2 hours per subject and then 3 subjects. And mine are Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So I like that they're kind of the start of the week, and then I have 4 days at the end where I can just kind of get like large blocks of work done. And then I think there's 75 in the LLM this year, which is almost double what would normally be in it. But that's because we're online this year. So next year it could go back down to 30. They might keep it the same. But in each module, then there's one module, I think there's 13 of us. And then there's another module where there's 35. So it really depends on the module. But independent learning then is probably maybe 3 to 5 hours of reading per class per week, and then depends on what assignments you have, So we're kind of coming up to the middle of the semester now. So there is a couple of assignments going to be due in the next couple of weeks. So you're talking probably another 3 or 4 hours each week on those assignments as well. So I can't really do maths, but like probably between 20 and 30 hours a week you'd be studying. But like that seems like a lot. But we don't have to commute in and out. We're not waiting outside lecture rooms. We're not waiting on buses. So yes, it's very kind of concise amount of work, but you're getting it done. You've no distractions. And like you still have time for your Netflix and whatever else you can do during lockdown.
We mentioned a little bit around kind of the diligence and the discipline and the organization. Is there anything that, and maybe this wasn't the case, but maybe even from your friends, that now that you're looking back, and probably into undergrad more so, but maybe now it's applicable, that you would maybe go, I wish I had did a little bit more of that, or I wish I was on top of that a little bit more. Did anything strike you coming into either undergrad or even the crossover from undergrad to postgrad?
I think the biggest thing for me was, as I kind of came towards the end of my degree, was realizing that you don't have to read every single page of every single judgment and every single book. You will not physically be able to do that, even if you really want to. So find out and prioritize the important readings and make your notes on them. It's easy to say make your notes as you go. Sometimes life gets in the way, but if you can keep on top of your notes, and that makes your life so much easier, especially when the exams are in January. You don't want to be sitting down kind of Christmas week opening the book for the first time. But one of the best things to do is to print off the exam papers week 1 or week 2. Then you know exactly what the exam focus is for each subject. There's only so many ways questions can be asked, and actually find out what the question words mean. So find out the difference between explain, describe, criticize, critically analyze. That's where you'll pick up marks if you can specifically answer the questions. So I think if I knew that in first year, I would have been a lot less stressed. I would have been able to kind of cut down a huge amount of my workload, because if you know exactly what you have to focus on, then you've half the work done already.
Makes complete sense. So to maybe paraphrase, start with the end in mind, go to the exam papers, and they're still, I'm going to say still, I was an undergrad in DCU and they were available to me. Exam papers are still available for you to access and to get.
Yep, they're all on the website. If you Google DCU exam papers, type in your course code, and they're all there.
Yeah, and it's probably that, and even with Kieran in the last conversation, we were talking about those kind of things that aren't necessarily called out as such or aren't as explicit, and that's probably one of them, and such a key kind of bit of learning that people now, and those that are listening may be going into undergrad and possibly looking at postgrad down the road, or maybe some people are actually at a juncture now where postgrad is very much on the horizon for them. Anything else I want to leave space there, because that stuff is so rich. Anything else looking back you'd change, or maybe if you had knowledge of, or more knowledge of?
It's really important to know that you're not alone in, it's such a big, like, I don't want to say it's a massive jump coming from secondary school to college, because that makes it sound really scary. It's not. It's exciting. Like it's a good scary, but know that you're not alone. So if there's the first week, you're not going to have a clue of some of the words that are being thrown at you, but that's normal. Like everybody gets that. Everybody has that feeling. But find a couple of people who maybe are in the same boat as you, get a study group together, even if it's an hour a week, and you say, okay, we're going to look at this topic. And even if you just get the key definitions, or for us, we would need to know what a judge said in a particular judgment and how that applied then to subsequent judgments. If you know that much, and if you have people you can bounce ideas off, people, even if you have someone who you can just go and say, look, this week's been really tough, I need to just vent, that's so important. And that would break down a lot of the barriers for you, especially coming up towards exam time. And it's probably even more important now at the minute, when we are all at home. You might feel a bit more isolated, but to reach out to the mental health services in DCU, they're just a fantastic bunch of people. They're there to help the students. Like that's what they want to do. There's none of them want anything more than to make sure that we're all okay. So reach out to anybody and make sure you get the help, whether it's academically, if you're feeling sick, if you're feeling just run down, there's people there to help you.
And maybe just to expand or to explore that a little bit more, because, and that's so true, by the way, in terms of sports, if and when you decide to come to DCU. But I guess if you're looking at DCU or a prospective student, and some of those that are listening or watching this back when it's put up online might be interested in coming to DCU, and myself and my colleagues, that's our job essentially, is to help you fill in the gap. So be it you want to talk to a student, or Orla or Kieran that was talking to us last, or you want to know what a term means, or whatever it may be. So it's not just exclusively, I guess, to point that out, it is if you're interested in coming as well. There's a question that came in, and thanks for the question. If there's any more, keep them coming in. Is there any specific Leaving Cert subjects that you need to do for your law course?
No, there isn't. A lot of people think you need a language. You don't. You just need to meet the actual grade requirements. And I think that could just be in English, Irish, and maths if you sit Irish. But no, there's no specific subjects. So whatever you enjoy at Leaving Cert, do that.
Thanks, Emil, and thank you for the question. Keep them coming in. As I said, they're anonymous, so we can put it to Orla if she can answer. If not, I'll try to do my best to answer it. I want to talk a little bit around careers and the direction not only you're going or want to go, but maybe just some of the options that are there in terms of the master's program that you're doing. So you already mentioned you have a particular area in mind that you want to go down. So maybe let's explore that a little bit in terms of what you're hoping to do. And then maybe in terms of friends or other people in your class or other people that from your undergraduate, etc., maybe some of the options that they've gone on to or can go on to.
Yeah. So I personally want to become a solicitor. So that's why I'm doing this master's and doing the FE1s. So the FE1s are 8 law subjects. They're kind of the core law subjects that you'll have to study regardless of whether you want to be a solicitor or not. And they're the entrance exams to Blackhall Place. So once you've done your law degree, you can do your FE1s. And then if you've passed all your FE1s, you go to Blackhall and you start your training contract. So your training contract usually is about 2.5 years, and you do that in a law firm. So I am going to William Fry in 2022. So you know quite far in advance kind of where you're going. So you can get a training contract through a summer internship or what's called the milk rounds. So milk rounds are basically you send in your application, and if you're called for an interview and you're successful, then you'll be given a contract. So I was lucky enough in the sense that I knew I always wanted to be a solicitor, so I didn't really have to do too much searching. But then after I did intra in 3rd year and I went to Arthur Cox, I knew for certain that that's what I wanted to do. I just loved the work. I loved the environment I was working in. So that really sealed the deal for me. But I have some friends who are in doing the King's Inns at the minute, so they want to be barristers. So they did their entrance exams just in the summer, and now they've started. I have some friends who are teaching assistants back in DCU, teaching law and assisting some of the lecturers. I have some friends who have gone on to do journalism, masters in journalism, company secretarial. So that's a really big area that it kind of gets overlooked because it doesn't sound as glamorous as being a solicitor, but there's so many opportunities for company secretarial on the intra program, and you can basically travel anywhere in the world if you are a company secretary, and it's such a brilliant option. With law, you can kind of go into anything. Like a lot go into obviously the traditional law fields, but they go into business as well, journalism, media. You can go into in-house. You can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah, and it's often something that, and even just in my own specific journey or experience, I'm a sports science and health undergraduate. I graduated at DCU and went off into an MSc in organizational behavior and psychology. So people might think, and maybe they're listening here with something particular in mind, but maybe as you're talking as well, it could just broaden people's, options arise. And so I guess it's an important thing to note. I don't want to go by, and I know you have mentioned a couple of times with regards to the intra work placement, the value of that, where you currently are now as a result of assistance. Maybe for those that are not overly familiar with intra, and I'll just briefly intro what it is, and then maybe if you want to talk more about it. But the intra work placement is an integral part of all DCU degree, or well, not every single DCU degree, but there's a certain level of practical exposure that you get. The intra work placement is in a lot of our courses. So to your particular experience and example, we might just explore that for a moment to give people a full sense, because it's important to acknowledge not only what you get and the exposure and the development, but also as you're currently now in your master's, the actual assistance and long-term assistance you can get as well. So a little bit around the intra side of things.
Yeah. So intra was introduced to law and society in 2018. So my class were the first class to actually get to do a legal intra placement. So we had to fill in an application form and then pick the firms that appealed to us and where we were hoping to be called for an interview for. So as I said, then I was lucky enough to be selected for Arthur Cox. So I started there in September of 2018 and I stayed there until August of 2019, just the start of August 2019. I was in two different departments. I was in corporate and litigation. And when I was in there, so I should say it's a paid placement, and that makes such a difference because that means you can pay for your bus, you can pay for your lunch, you can pay if you need to get maybe a blazer or like nice shoes or whatever. But when I was there, I was treated the same way as every other person. You don't go in and you're not treated like a child. You're not treated like, oh, this person will be here now, they'll get coffee for us. You're given actual work. Well, that was my experience. You're given actual work, you're given actual responsibility. You really do get a sense of what it would be like to work as a solicitor or work as whatever job, the office you're in or whatever. So I had the best time. The hours were long, it was tough work, but I really, really enjoyed it. And the most important thing about intra is you get a sense of whether it is something you do or do not want to do. And it's probably even more important to find out if you don't want to do it, because then you know that's one other option ticked off your list and maybe you want to focus then on some other thing. And then that really helped in my application for the master's because I had proof that I had legal experience, that I wanted to be in a law firm. And even if I didn't decide to do a legal master's and I wanted to do a marketing master's, it still would have stood to me because I have industry experience.
And these conversations are so short, so we're only getting into certain parts and then we're having to jump away. So if there is something we're talking about and you want to find out more, indeed ask another question if you want. There's an application on over here at studenthelp@dcu.ie all the time, pretty much 24/7. We pride ourselves on being very responsive in that space. So do give us a shout because I know we're jumping around because we're just tight for time. I do want to cover, and maybe it's a good way to kind of finish or to kind of see out the conversation around outside the classroom, particularly in your area with regards, the learning and the reading and the workload in general that's involved in your space, which I would like to think is complemented by the outside the classroom activities. I know you're student ambassador and there's a couple of other things that you're involved with. Maybe give us a sense of, from your experience anyway, outside the classroom and what you can do or what you're doing outside the classroom.
So there's literally hundreds of clubs and societies in DCU. Like anything you're interested in, there's probably a club or society there for you. I love law. That's what I wanted to do. Even when I was relaxing, I wanted to do law. So I joined the Law Society, the ELSA Society, which is the European Law Students Association, and the Free Legal Advice Clinic. So these just bring all the law students and even people who don't study law but just have an interest in it together and give us a chance to meet, make connections, make friendships. You get a chance then to travel after the exams in January if you'd like to go. So I've been to Copenhagen, I've been to Amsterdam. In March, I was supposed to go to Rome for a law school with ELSA. So you've so many opportunities within DCU with those clubs and societies. And then literally they do go global and you stay friends with these people like long after you leave DCU. So if there is something that you want to get in, like even if you just try it out for a couple of weeks, you won't regret it. Like it's so much fun.
And it is so true on the holistic development and support that's on offer academically is obviously extremely important where people may want to go career wise, and having that is important in terms of the course opportunity. But I guess hopefully we're able to accurately describe the other opportunities that are there that you mightn't necessarily be coming directly to college for, but they come as part of the package and part of your experience. And again, we are running out of time. So if any last minute questions, do get them in. We have our quick fire questions, which I think are going to be so easy. But anyway, as I said to Kieran, I'm running out of questions. So this week got off very, very lightly. But if there is any last minute questions, please do pop them in. We have literally about 3 minutes left. And if there is something, we're happy to cover it in that particular time. So quick fire question round. God, I'm just looking at these now. I wish I had come up with better ones. Anyway, well, actually, some of them might be tricky. So true or false? These are very simple. True or false? DCU became a university in 1989. Officially became a university in 1989.
True.
True is the answer. So we're a relatively young university in comparison to other places that are out there, but we like to think we're young and dynamic and hopefully getting to bigger and better things all the time. Well done. Yeah, 1 out of 1. DCU currently has, as a resource, over 15 different course podcasts that are available to listen to online. True or false?
True.
True is right. You kind of hesitated there, so you didn't know the answer. 2 out of 2 nonetheless. And then lastly, DCU, in terms of resource that's available online, DCU currently offers over 40 course webinars that are available online right now.
True.
True. So that was 3 out of 3. So you and Kieran are neck and neck. So Kieran, he's actually gone. He's not listening, but it was a draw. Come here, there is about a minute or two left. If there is no last minute questions, all that's left is just really to thank you for your time. And before I let you go, and just to reiterate again, if there is something that those that are watching or indeed watching this back think they want to ask or want to know a little bit more about, I know the student ambassadors and yourself are always incredibly obliging with your time. So do give us a shout at studenthelp@dcu.ie or just reach out in general. You'll find us on social and a couple of other places as well. But Or, thanks a mil for your time. Always highly enjoyable having the conversation, and we hopefully will speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
No problem, and we'll see you soon.